40 of what you're listening to. Thanks for tuning in. Irregular time this week. Friday was too. Monday night in Japan. What time is it over there? 2 o'clock? 3 o'clock? 4 o'clock?
3 o'clock. London
3
time.
o'clock.
5
3 o'clock in London, 5 o'clock in Finland.
Helsinki, yeah.
Helsinki. Thanks for coming on. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Pleasure, treasure.
We've been like talking for an hour before we went on air.
The problem with an hour of run-up is that we just dropped all our jokes already.
Biscuits, biscuits and crisps and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Should have recorded that. Yeah. All right. Let's see if anyone's in the chat. It's early days yet, but let's have a little look. And let's do the housekeeping. Don't forget to. Don't forget to. We can do whatever we want. No one's watching.
Yeah.
We could.
There we go. Let's do the housekeeping. There we go. Boom. If you're watching, like and subscribe. There we go.
Drop a like. Drop a subscribe.
Smash the what's that button? The notification button.
Yeah.
Do that.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Oh, we got an entrant. Luke, 2 minutes. That's good. That's got to be a world record for the show.
We're
right?
waiting.
Seconds. Not bad.
There we go. Hey, it's Luke.
Hola, Luke.
Hey, Luke. How you doing?
Is that Luke from Bordeaux?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Darren's here. There we go.
I haven't seen him since the old days.
Darren from Brighton.
I still have your mixtape, Luke.
Nice. The gang's all here. The gang's all here. All right, man. I'm really excited to see what everyone's got tonight. We've got 5 records each. Hey, Andrew's here too. How you doing, Andrew? There you go. Andrew from Black Army Jacket. There you go.
Oh, cool.
A lot of splits. I like.
Yeah. Shall we get going?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's do it. So we'll go around 5 times. We'll do one each. Go around. Me, Jonah, Paco, Ville, and then we'll go around 5 times and have a good time talking about 5 or 20 records or more if anyone's cheating and has an extra one or a bonus record or maybe it happens. Usually,
all right, Mike,
usually me that does that.
We have plan Bs in case that somebody else have the same.
What if we all had the exact same record?
Hasn't happened yet. It almost happened with Heroes of the Night, Volume 2.
Oh, great record.
Everybody almost had that, but I didn't have it. So, yeah. All right, let's get going. I'm going to start off with a local band.
I'm not looking, Jonah. You can do it.
No, Mike's going first, right?
Yeah, can you do it without like seeing? Is that possible?
Yeah.
Cheers.
Oh, I'm picking a record?
I'll go first.
Yeah.
I'll go first. Yeah, I'll go first. I'm going to start with a local band from Osaka. And I feel like nobody talks about this band. And it's always dangerous to say that because you're like, well, everyone's talking about this band. You're out of the loop. But we'll find out. It's a great band from Osaka. They've got a few singles out. They've got a 12-inch out. They've got a demo tape out. I'm going to show their 12-inch from a couple of years ago. Talk about this band. The Geros. Can you see it? The Geros. Good-looking record. Not bad.
Yeah, great looking record.
Good-looking record. The Geros.
I don't think
nobody really talks about this band. They're an interesting band. They get called like a 77, like a Killed by Death kind of band, but they're way, way more than that. By the way, the name means the vomits or the sicks or the pukes or the throw-ups. Choose whichever one. Proper punk name, yeah. Whichever you want. 5-track, 12-inch, came out on Debauch Moods, which is a Tokyo label. Which puts out a lot of like punk rock, like not hardcore. Mm-hmm. This is a great record. And I think, Black Conflict from Malaysia put out their discography on a CD, maybe. But this is a great record. Like, it's just 5 songs. The first song takes up like almost all of side 1. It's like a jazzy, weird, like quirky dirge, like kind of Black Flag thing going on. Pretty interesting. And then the other 4 songs are like 1 minute, 1.5 minutes, just full on, like raw, quirky, kind of like old LA punk a little bit. But
This looks like the kind of record that somebody would show me when visiting their house. And then I'd be like, where can I get it? And they're like, it's totally gone. And then I'd covet it for the next 15 years, never having heard it again.
I don't know.
Doesn't it look like one of those records where you're like, I've always heard about this, and it looks great, but I've never actually heard it kind of thing. Like they've done that thing where the design of it makes it just look like it's already gone. You know what I mean?
You know, the skull looked like the Uncle Conker or whatever, the Swedish record.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, too.
Good looking record. Good band. Underrated, I want to say. Maybe not very well known, like outside Japan. I don't know. They play a lot in Osaka. And I want to show this because I was thinking they're a little bit like old LA punk kind of sounding. And I found out, in fact, let me do some high technology stuff here. I found out they're actually playing in Osaka with the Avengers.
Oh, fucking hell.
And Channel 3 in October in Osaka at Club Stomp. There you go. Same place as Foreseen, right? So there you go.
It's a crazy lineup. When is that?
And there's another crazy thing about this record too, which it might blow your mind a little bit. So when I was listening to this record, I was thinking, man, this kind of reminds me a little bit of The Mad, a little bit.
Yeah. A
little bit. And then I asked a Japanese friend of mine, I was like, you know this band, the Geros? And he's like, yeah, great band. Did you know that they're the backing band for Screaming Mad George?
What?
And I'm like, what? What do you mean? He's like, yeah, because he lives in Osaka now. He's a professor or something. And when he plays live, he has this band back him up when they play live. I was like, Jesus Christ. Amazing. So my thing of thinking that they sounded like The Mad was completely spot on. It's kind of weird.
That's not an easy feat to sound like The Mad. That's one of those bands that has never really been replicated.
They've got kind of that weird, a little bit horror punk vibe, kind of spooky.
Yeah. There's tropes in punk that are replicable, like little threads you can follow, and you can kind of get to basically the essence, and you can keep writing music in that essential vein and make it your own. But then The Mad, I don't think one band has ever zeroed in on their essence, which is that it's slightly art damaged. It's really informed by the 1970s rock and roll, New York City, like Max's thing. And but it's chaotic and spontaneous. And it's something that is, if you saying that band kind of sounds like The Mad, and Screaming Mad George has them back him up.
And to have the Screaming Mad George back them up, as he must, he's like, Jesus, this is a good band. I'm going to get them to back me up, when I play live,
Do they hate music?
Don't you? When you see people get interviewed from the old days, no matter what era it is, it's like the first time I heard put your band in there, I thought I've got to join this fucking band. They've changed music or something. And now Screaming Mad George is doing the inverse, where he's like the famous musician. He's like, I gotta get these guys in my fucking band.
They must have been over the moon, man, to play with him. He doesn't play often, but when he does, these guys are backing him up. So
that's ace.
It's on Bandcamp if you want to check it out. The Geros Weird to Dance. Weird to Dance is the name of the record. Debauch Mood is the name of the label. But yeah, check it out. It's on there. It's on Bandcamp. Good record.
Right? Was that sold out already?
I'll ask around. It's 2 years old. I hope they pressed enough. I'm not sure. But Debauch Mood put out the black and white LP, which is that's a good record too.
But the Geros got other records, right?
Yeah, they have 2 or 3 7-inches too. Before this, I haven't heard or seen actually. So yeah, who knows? Yeah.
I'm looking them up now.
Wait. You can't wait. All right, Jonah.
Okay. So
I'm looking.
Here's the brief précis here. I moved to London just about 8 years ago, and I didn't come with my records straight away. Yeah. And in fact, they only just arrived in London a month ago. So I've kind of been without them, just accepting their non-existence forever. So in some ways, I haven't been listening to any of these, but I had to dig through. And I had stuff in mind that I was like, you know what, we're going to do this thing and this will be quite cool. So the first thing is the Bikini single from Hungary. I don't know if anybody knows that. So this is 1980. And it's an early Hungarian punk / hardcore single. And it looks this way because at that point, it was really insane to probably put out anything that could be considered dangerous and against the state. So they made it look like a pop record. And apparently, in order to get a record pressed, this is like pressed on like the state label or some like fully state-backed sort of thing. In order to do this, you had to have your lyrics combed over by some government official. And so basically, one of the members of this band had to go into a government office and like pledge allegiance to the fatherland or whatever, and tell them that they've basically written the great patriotic representation of Hungarian music. And they had their parents like help forge hopefully I don't get anybody arrested. They had their parents help forge a document, and I might be getting some of these details wrong, but like they forged a document that said these lyrics are like basically the Hungarian national anthem, and they're all like "Go fuck yourself," punk lyric. Wow. And it's 1983. My bad, 1983. And so I got this record many years ago in Toronto. A fellow that moved to Toronto from Hungary, his name is Dini. He hit me up and he's like, "Hey, my band did this recording back in Hungary. I was hoping you could like mix it or master it or something, or help me like convert some files," like some totally ordinary request, which I did happily. And he came over and he said, "I want to give you this as a gift." And apparently at the time, this was Jello Biafra's Top One. And Jello, if you're watching, I got your fucking heat right here, pal. And he probably has it by now. But yeah, it's a fucking amazing. The A side is like the first half of the song is like weird sort of pogo-y melodic punk that devolves into opera vocals at some point, and you think they've lost the plot. And just when it goes into opera, it sounds a bit like, I don't know, like certain, like maybe even like Deutsch punk. It's like a bad connection, but this sort of like oompa type things, really cool, really aggressive guitar sound. And right when the opera kicks in, it stops and goes into this like double time, like hardcore sounding thing, and the vocals get a bit harsher. And then the B-side is like some bizarre reggae, like it's like really shitty 80s pop reggae, like made by some honkies in Hungary. The A-side is fucking legendary, and I think this band had other records too, which suck shit, but this one rules. And it's I mean, if there's any Hungarian speakers that ever watch this, the title of this, I can't even read the title of the song. It looks like Je ne car je ne te and je clini je dat. Anyway, there you go. Bikini.
Damn.
So, and look at these guys. Look at them. Hold on a minute. I mean, look at that. This guy's churning butter, maybe. The rest of the guys are like, that's fucking cool.
Doesn't that look like the Buzzcocks singles Going Steady? The back of that?
It does look a bit like that. There you go. Start Records. So wrap your ears around that, everybody.
That's a first. Hungarian punk. I don't know much about it.
Not a lot of it. Not a lot of it.
Not that early, no.
Yeah. And so, Dini, if you ever watch this, I'm sorry for telling the story of this band incorrectly, but thank you very much for this kind gift. Hey,
there you go. There we go. See?
Whoa, look at that. The bass player of Hungarian anarcho-punk band Rotör wrote a letter to Biafra to sabotage the release of this band because of them being signed to the state's record company. Whoa.
There
you go.
Backstory confirmed.
There you go.
Bricklayer
Zultan. Thanks.
My man. Thank you. There you go.
There you go.
Much better band.
I feel like I wish we could just play this on air because it fucking rocks.
You can do it.
Go on, Paco. No, you're an expert.
Maybe at the end, if we've got time, we'll give it a go. We'll give it a go.
Can you find that online, like YouTube or something?
I've looked, and it might be online, and I'm just searching for the wrong thing. But the only stuff that I found by Bikini, even on Discogs, it's like a different song, and it's really tinny sounding and poorly melodic, and has like bad, like the Antidote LP vocals. Like it's really weird. So I don't know. I'm sure it's out there, and I just don't know how to search for it because I am somewhat ignorant of how to properly type in Hungarian. So there you go. Okay, over to you.
Me?
Or Ville?
Oh, I got a guy bringing a package. I got to get that.
All right.
I'm out of here.
A guy bringing a package.
That's the Finnish state police. They're coming to fucking take the
There's not that many Hungarian 7/8s from that era,
There's
right?
next to none.
That's the first one I've ever really heard of. But I remember that band Trottel though, that Bricklayer.
Well, that's a bit later, right?
Yeah, I don't even particularly know Trottel. Hey, much better band too. There you go.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is Trottel better or is Bikini better? To you, Bricklayer, if you care to chime in.
Let us know. Yeah.
Let us know. Drop a like. Drop a subscribe. Hey, Paco, come on.
We'll wait for Billy, man.
Has he got an accordion back there? Or no, it's a Moog.
I thought you know what? That's what I thought it was too. I think we're talking Trottel here. Trottel, the good band.
Yeah.
There you go.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then I mean, I really, just to continue, since we're waiting for Ville to get back for school us all on this stuff. I picked this in particular because it's just like a pretty unknown record, and I tell this story about this record to lots of people, and they're like, "What does it sound like?" And you go, "You know what? I haven't listened to it in 10 years." So I spun it this morning, and the A side is indeed great, and it sounds crunchy and strange, and it has, sometimes Eastern or Middle European and Eastern European punk has this sort of like folk music quality to it, and this is no exception until it breaks into this hardcore section. It's cool. Anyway, all right, Paco, go on.
That looks really cool, actually.
Yeah,
I'll add it to the list.
Yeah.
So, so the first record I want to talk today is this record from Argentina.
Oh, this is
recently,
really
yeah.
I have that as well. I almost picked it.
Right on the list. Wow. I can pick up another one. I have many.
Almost.
I didn't pick it. I almost picked it.
Okay.
It's over there.
So it's like I mean, most people would say it's a goth record. I think it's like, it has a lot of like goth elements in the sense that it has a lot of flanger, like really cavey vocals. It's the mood of the entire record is really downer. But I don't know. Thinking of the time of the place, it's like, I believe it's 87. And by the way, this just got reissued in Dark Entries like maybe like 6 months ago to a year.
Yeah, I think it's this year or last year.
Yeah. And I mean, there's not that many goth bands from like Spanish-speaking countries which are well known on the west, I suppose, or on the north. But this one competes with like any like classic, what they used to call positive punk in the UK, like that. Yeah. What then they call, I guess, goth or post-punk. But I mean, it doesn't have drumming per se. It's like electronic drumming. It has a lot of like synth on it. Again, a lot of flanger. And like at times the vocals are kind of like really ethereal. Even like sometimes it's even like, I don't know, like opera-like. And the themes that they touch on, I mean, they're all the classic goth subject, but they have like another element that is quite existentialist, I would say. I don't know. All in all, it's an incredible record that I don't think many people know yet.
First time.
And I mean, I can think also of bands like what's a band from Mexico?
The current band?
No, it's like another like Las Animas, the Cuarto Oscuro, I think they were called. They have another like 2 LPs and like a bunch of cassette tapes, and they touch on the same vibe. And it's not the type of music that you will think of coming on that era, that place. But it is extremely good. And I think that, I mean, again, Dark Entries deserve like a monument just because how much stuff that, I mean, it's literally unknown or extremely hard to find from all over the world, from like Kitchen and the Plastic Spoons to like, I don't know, Euroshima. Like, it just did a great Mexican compilation of electronic music from the late 80s. And I mean, I think anyone have a set of ears for this type of music should definitely check them out. It's on Bandcamp, it's on YouTube. The record is fairly easy to find. If anyone out there have an original, I'm looking for one. And, yeah, discuss. That's it.
Yeah,
it looks cool too, though, and they look amazing on the pictures.
Let's check the name of the record again. The name of the band for everyone watching.
Euroshima.
Euroshima. Okay.
The album is called Gala. Gala.
Nice.
But look at these guys. This is
what you want.
Robert Smith looking guy here.
But they have the random guy too that every decent band need to have. You know, like this guy is a bit uncomfortable on the picture. You know? But the other ones look like full on, like, I mean, by that era, that's like which like probably Kiss Me era, The Cure. Yeah. So it's like when they were going fully 30.
Right.
And it's like, I don't know, same year, really.
There's always one person in the band that just really is happy, but doesn't really want to swallow the Kool-Aid.
He's probably the seller, like he's probably the best musician of the band.
But isn't that the way you always want somebody who's incredibly proficient, but isn't the same vibe, and it just helps you sort of get your musical leg over, so to speak, like, and then that person has to then slowly migrate to the genre exercise or the moment in time in which they are resentfully, and then we all hear their solo record 25 years later, and it's like really bad Joe Satriani, whatever, you know.
I also think another
like it's always the same thing.
Sorry,
what's that?
Ville, go ahead.
No, it's like always the same thing. It's weird in the band, like who does it?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Always a guy.
Mm-hmm. And
there's this triple LP compilation that I saw the other day. Like, it's all Argentinian from like that time period, and it's like synth pop and all sorts of other stuff. I'm just wondering if that band has a track on that compilation.
I mean, they were in a major. This wasn't CBS at the time.
Okay.
So I don't know how easy to license that type of thing is for independent. But what is certain is like, I mean, I've been collecting or buying music in Spanish since, I mean, I'm Spanish, obviously. So I always have more interest in like bands singing in Spanish.
Right.
And there's this phenomena that like 15 years ago, like nobody will take, like, for example, Colombian punk serious. And then you fast forward a few years and like everybody's looking for those records, you know?
Right.
And it hasn't happened yet with Argentinian music, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like with Mexico, definitely has happened. With Argentina, not yet. But I don't really know how much stuff I'm missing, but there is not that many like purely punk records there. And maybe on the Gulf Wall there are more. Mm-hmm. And I'm just wondering if there will be like another resurgence where people are like trying to track these things down, and we'll see a lot of new reissues of like, it's not independent obviously because CBS,
right?
Like
stylistically independent.
Yeah,
that's a great pick. I'm gonna look for that one for sure.
Check it out. It's positive punk, man.
I've got one in that genre later. We'll get to that.
All right.
45 minutes.
Right.
Hey,
Ville, what's your first record?
I'm gonna get this out of the way. I think it's my favorite punk record this year. This I think it was Paco and maybe Iron Lung in the States, and it's just an amazing record. Like a mix of 80s UK anarcho and old Italian hardcore, which is two of my favorite things in punk, basically. So it's just like almost like a record that's custom made for me. So and like the production is perfect. It fits the music. I like the melodies and everything. So it's just a really, really good punk record. Maybe something I'll be waiting for that thing to happen for a long time. And I really like the Subdued LP that came out a couple of years back. That was amazing. And it was like the heavier side of UK anarcho. But then that one has a touch of like the craziness of Italian hardcore. So it's even kind of level up. So amazing record.
The live footage of them looks so fucking good too.
They're good here.
I missed it.
Yeah.
But it seems like there's like a new crop of people making punk in Italy like them. And what was that teenage band? Like Narcan? Narcan. It was just.
I mean, Sloya, still there, Cobra. Like all those bands are amazing.
Yeah, it's fucking really cool.
Obviously, I have only nice things to say about that record. Obviously.
It's funny. I was going to say, before the show, I was saying, are there any records that are like have been shown twice or 3 times? And I said, yeah, you know, if it's a good new record, people are going to show it. And that's a great example there because Darren showed it last week. So I think people really like really like this record. So, yeah.
But I think it's really, really interesting what Ville said about, we mentioned the Subdued LP there. Because for me, there is like a extremely clear, like, line between those two bands. Obviously, they've been touring together and playing together, but they are doing something really magical, both of them. I think that they're beautiful people, incredible musicians, great songwriting, great artwork, and they kind of get it. You know what I mean?
I think I've never met the Spirito di Lupo people, but like everything that their records tell about them leads to this like great place of understanding about exactly the place you're talking about, coming from like UK anarcho and the chaos of Italian hardcore. And it's like chaos of Italian hardcore in the 80s seemed to be almost lightning in a bottle, like, and unreproduced anywhere else. But
pretty much
UK is such an export in a way, like it hit so many people in such a meaningful way, and present company included. And to combine the two is like a fucking serious touch.
Yeah, but I kind of feel like the 80s UK anarcho hasn't been replicated in that way. People tried it, but it didn't really happen. It always sounds a bit weird. And I think the accent is a huge part of it. So if it's someone from outside the UK doing it, it's totally different. No matter if it sounds like sonically, if it's the same, it's still different because of the singer.
The recording.
That's really interesting because, people associate tunelessness with punk, but language is such an important delivery method for hardcore punk, especially internationally. And like Finnish punk music, also the language of it helps define the sound. And I was talking about like the sound of quote unquote folk music. Like, I think that's in Finnish punk too, that kind of like sing along thing of community, and the Finnish language is so expressive in like creating that particular melody over like brutal music. It's quite cool and essential.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I agree with
that. Same with Italian hardcore.
Sorry.
Italian hardcore.
I keep going about it. I was going to say that one thing that people sometimes like overlook with all those classic anarcho bands is like the recordings are incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, no everyone had access to Southern records, but most of the people who record what are considered classic records, they're like proper studio, like a lot of, and people don't have the same amount of time now to go and record an album or the same tools that you had then.
Yeah. Resources are so strange as well. And it's like the person that maybe had like a studio good enough to produce a great sounding record then has a completely different set of tools than the same person in the same position now. Is it just the records just sound different? They're not going to have that like hangover of the 70s, like warmth to them.
Yeah, it's funny because when we were coming up in the 80s, and people say, "Hey, look, check out like this DIY punk. They're all DIY, and they can't play their instruments." And we get these Cress records, these records on Cress. Think, Jesus Christ, these bands are like really, really good musicians, and the records are also like sound like really, really amazing too. It's like, what are you talking about?
It's like really, really like organic and powerful sound.
Yeah.
It's like super distorted, but like powerful. It's kind of hard to pinpoint what it is, but it's just something that's never been replicated since, I think.
Shit, yeah.
Well, in Cress, it's all about the producer, right? There was a figure there who a lot of time actually alienated the musicians, because what you hear on the Cress records, a lot of times is not what the bands wanted. It's what Penny Rainbow want. And there are different versions. Some of them were like different, like arrangements, like completely different songs.
Did anybody clock a couple of years ago when Cress, or I don't know who put them up, but somebody in Cress, probably what's his face, big man? Why can't I remember the singer's name?
Steve
put the stems to Feeding of the 5,000 online and remix it. You do one, Villa?
I can send you a link. I still have it if you want to check it.
I want to hear it. I downloaded it, but I never did it. But
dude, that's funny because
it's so cool.
I was so close to being one record today, which is absolutely mental. I mean, I'm not coming from me. I mean,
that's like your life story. So close.
Hold on a second. This person who should remain nameless for now, he actually got the stems and made a record, which is a completely avant-garde record. It's like there is a lot of field recording, there's a lot of like isolated part of the record, and the record was done to be testing pressing machines at pressing plants. So they make only a bunch of them. And the person again who remain nameless for now, he gave me one copy like when the record got done, and I didn't listen to it for like 6-7 months. But I recently played, and I could not believe that record is not out there. Because it could be like a missing Crash record, one of the late era when they were completely experimental and avant-garde. That's probably the missing link. One day it will be released.
Yeah, fascinating era of like music.
Yeah,
like that.
Would love to hear that. Sounds really interesting. So I like that, like later Crash record stuff and Corpus Christi, like Anti-Anxiety records and all that. Like I really like that stuff. So this sounds like something I would probably enjoy a lot.
I think you will love it.
Yeah. If you find an extra copy, I'm interested.
I'm sure you'll get one.
Yeah.
All right. Ready for some prog rock? You down with the prog rock? Jazz rock?
Get in.
All right. Let's take it back to some UK 71. I'm going to go for some UK 71. Apparently, I don't know if this is true, but it could be like the rarest record on the Vertigo. I don't have an original, obviously. I'm a big prog rock fan. This is a band that I kind of came across recently. I'd never heard of him before. I love this record. It's the first
Catapilla.
Cool. Never heard it.
There you go. Man, this is a wild record. I mean, it kind of sounds like early Van der Graaf Generator or really early King Crimson. Just 4 tracks on it. First track is like 15 minutes long and it's called Naked Death. And it's like super heavy with like really dark and doomy lyrics. That's the inside of the record.
Beautiful.
Yeah, apparently they were signed to Vertigo by like Black Sabbath's manager. Forgot his name. But kind of obscure band. And side 2 is 1 track, like a 25-minute jam called Embryonic Fusion. Is the track. And they have 3 sax players, but they're all like really good players, and they don't usually play at once. It's like real like free jazz style. 3 sax players. Some people don't like the sax. I'm okay with it if they're good players. It doesn't get in the way.
My wife says that saxophones sound like rubbery breathing. It's kind of true. Shout out to her. But 3 sax players is like your whole saxophone section.
2 tenors and an alto. There you go. And a guitar player. But it's pretty wild. It's pretty heavy. A lot of like wild guitar solos, some heavy riffs, some noodling, some psychedelic stuff. But I haven't told you the secret weapon of this band.
All right.
It's funny as hell. It's the vocalist. It's this woman called Anna Meek. And I guess like most people who are like into prog and stuff, they kind of like their vocalist to be kind of like technically proficient. I want to say Anna Meek is like not technically proficient, and she's what makes this record like really stand out amongst any other records from this era. She's a wild like vocalist who goes from a whisper to like a opera style to just like blood curdling screams, which like for like 1971 like it's pretty unusual. I would say. Yeah,
that's fun.
Lots of wah-wah freak outs and stuff on this record. Prog rock, jazz rock.
I love that there's so many of those records that are still undiscovered.
It was new to me.
Relatively speaking. I mean, obviously somebody's reissued it, but prog freakouts is like, I don't know, like in the grand scheme of rock and roll, it seems like stuff like that gets sort of shifted to the side because of its excess. But there is a kind of like good sort of jetty or eddy to that you can lie in with prog of that style, where it's just sort of about like a big sound, a big texture that you're chasing, you know. And some of those records go in and out of being like the heaviest thing you've ever heard.
It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Separate the wheat from the chaff most of the time, you know.
I mean, this band isn't a nice, pleasant band. It's not. In fact, there's no synths on it, if I remember rightly. No synths. No synths. So just guitar, bass, drums, 3 sax players, and the vocals. I don't usually do this, but I had to do it for this. If you go on like Prog Archives, this record kind of gets slated a little bit because of like the vocals, which it means it's great, right? So let me just read some quotes from Prog Archives because it's hilarious. So this one, I'm just presuming all these like these are all like 67-year-old guys, who are like writing this stuff, but it's like the vocalist sounds like a distraught Nico as she wails, cries, and screams out her pleas to anyone who will listen. It's like fucking, it's just such a good quote. I could not not say it, and this is even better. Bordering on completely unlistenable. No thanks to the screechy banshee vocals of Anna Meek. So
You've got Paco's attention.
I'm selling this record, right? I'm selling this record to you, right? And then this is the best one. A gutsy tornado of Janis Joplin-esque howling that resembles a witch and a banshee violently making love. There you go.
First prog rock description I've ever heard.
It's right. It's like it's so different from like most of the stuff that was coming out at that time. Check it out.
Nice.
It got reissued on trading places, or there's that Akama version. But if you can get the trading places, it's an official reissue, I think. So.
Aces. Cool.
Nice.
What is it called again? Caterpillar.
Caterpillar. Yeah.
Where are they from?
England. Yeah.
Where?
I'm not sure. That's a good question. We'll have to check that out. Let us know in the comments. Where are Caterpillar from?
From hell.
But there's another. It's great stuff.
Yeah. I guess I'm up. I'm just gonna reach into the bag blindly and see what pulls out next. Actually, no. I'm gonna look. Okay. Wouldn't be the first time I've talked about something I don't really know about.
All right, me too. Every week.
I really like it. This is a reggae record by Calman Scott, and the song is called "Devil in the City." And why do I have it? I'm not really a big reggae collector. I'm not even like a huge reggae head, but I think this is the first like 70s reggae record I ever bought, and it has a connection to Toronto because in the 70s and late 60s and 70s, there's a ton of migration from Jamaica to Toronto, and a lot of like big artists were recording and producing records in Toronto, the place that I'm from in Canada. And this is made in Jamaica, but it has like this. I believe it was like a Wacky's production, which is like a big producer who made a lot of things. Although it doesn't, Wacky's isn't credited on this, but it's like Wacky is adjacent, and it has one of the craziest drum breaks to start this record, and it's really like acoustic sounding drums and really driving guitars, and it's like this classic. Again, I don't really know a lot about reggae, so this is like the objective. It's like this great like story of loss and being lost and trying to find your way home, Devil in the City, and like temptation. And this is like such a propulsive and like rough sounding track. And the fact that it's like 1977 as well ties in with like kind of maybe production techniques that they were creeping in about volume and grit and stuff. And so yeah, there you go. Calman Scott, Devil in the City, and the B-side it's just called Devilish Version. And it's like a mad dub take on the same thing. It's on Rouse record.
Wow.
Rouse. And I got this in a neighborhood in Toronto called Kensington Market from this young guy who just had like crates and crates of records on the floor. And I was with somebody that knew a lot about this sort of thing. And we were flipping through and I pulled this out. I was like, what's this? And he had about 4 copies. And the guy I was with was like, you need to buy that immediately. And so, but yeah, I haven't seen it for many years, obviously. And I pulled it out today and I thought that'd be a good one. Nice. Bit of an unexpected turn. So there you go. Cool. Ross, Calman Scott, Devil in the City, and Devilish Version.
What year?
77.
77.
Yeah.
Ooh, stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
Don't get much
until now.
Until now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know there's like a connection between reggae and punk in some ways, and there's like this DIY aspect that sort of, I think if you're a big reggae head, you sort of understand the like homemade nature of this music. And also like, I don't know, I just find it like punk is interested in telling the story of why no is relevant. And this is reggae, especially at this time, seems to really be about storytelling and in the sense of like finding your way. So, so I sort of see it as as living in this parallel, and the sound worlds are. This is one time also where I sort of thought the sound worlds were kind of similar because of the sound of the drums, because of the sound of the guitars, and musically analogous. It's not to any of the other stuff that we're talking about, but the playing is kind of virtuosic, and the singing is meditative and like, you know, deeply indebted to just like the sense of like immediacy and feeling that, you know, all good independent music is made with. And the fact that this was probably distributed out of a basement somewhere at Vaughan and Eglinton in Toronto in 1977 to a bunch of like, you know, people living in a new country, you know, on one meridian, and then a totally different bunch of people living in from another country, living in a new country on a different meridian. Like, you know, Toronto is also the story of like immigration, especially in the second half of the 20th century. And there was a huge, you know, like unity in a funny way of like Jamaicans and Italians and Portuguese people. And, you know, all these people that all of a sudden fear each other, but have to get along. And the younger generation gets along through music, maybe, ideally. But, and, you know, anyway, so there you go.
Yeah. When I was living in a squat in like the early to mid 80s in England, we would often go and see bands like Steel Pulse and the Black Roots and Black Uhuru and all those bands. We loved all that stuff.
Yeah, man, Black Uhuru is fucking absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Great
songs, great songwriting. Black Uhuru, really beautiful.
Shit.
Steel Pulse.
All right.
I want to talk about reggae.
Talk more about reggae.
How do you feel about it? Like punk, like reggae punk reggae?
I always had like an allergic reaction to reggae in the sense that like it wasn't fast. It wasn't. Yeah, and this was the record that changed my mind. And because I hated like punk reggae, I skipped the reggae songs in the Bad Brains records. I thought it was like too slow, too boring. It wasn't, you know, musical enough. All this like stuff I just like couldn't get over. And then I kind of heard this and it just sort of flipped my wig a bit because I was like, oh fuck, like I have all these like instant reactions to this thing that I've projected onto a genre. And then I heard this and I thought, you know what, I like this. Like there's nothing that there's nothing I dislike about this. The sounds are totally immediate and it's a story. The story was what killed me and resonated with me.
Mm-hmm.
And in general, like I have a pretty hands-off relationship with reggae. Don't claim to know anything about it. I'm totally a dilettante, but I was going
to say Polish punk. They did a good job of mixing like a bit of reggae in with their punk. I would say.
I think it's
Spain too.
It's pretty like sketchy thing to like bring into your punk like stylistically, and it's also like very egomaniacal to like take such folk music and like rebrand it in something as like musically ideologically, you know, streamlined as punk, which is like that validity of no as a point of view, like right. Nihilism as a worldview. That's like sort of like the acceptance of punk, and that's what punk did for the world in some small way. But yeah, I don't know. It's one of these things that like I think can coexist. And if you think about it sonically, there's so much in common. We're talking about big production with Anarcho Records, and like, you know, talking about London in the 70s and 80s and the blending of Jamaican culture and punk culture. Like that's something that's very real. And obviously that's a completely different right. melding of musical cultures. But the thing that they have in common is this like home recording and like audio generated from nothing. So I think there's a case for it.
No, it's quite primitive.
It's quite primitive in some cases. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of feel like in Finland, a lot of these like first wave punks, they were into reggae, but people after that never picked it up really the same way. So it was just like if you listen to Razzia or stuff like that, late 70s, early 80s stuff, new wave, you might have some reggae influences there. But after that, it's just non-existent in Finland. But then it was just like hardcore and Finnish hardcore since the early 80s, and then there's no reggae, luckily. So.
Yeah.
They all listen to Poison Idea. Reggae bracket. I hate.
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, it's punk is the anti-mellow, to be fair. So especially hardcore punk is like, who needs a fucking break?
Yeah, no speed, no punk.
Yeah, no speed, no punk.
All
But
right.
hey, we're getting on in years. It's the afternoon. We can a world where Coleman Scott goes alongside the Bastards and Razzia and whoever else you.
Catapilla. I know.
Yeah.
All right, Paco, what's your second one?
We pick up a punk record or a non-punk record?
Up to you, mate. Up to you.
Just let's get the punk out of it.
Just pick
All right, out of the way. Okay.
Yeah. It's actually a new. Well, it's not a new record. It's a record that came out like 5 years ago, I think. But it kind of disappeared. It was kind of like, I don't think the distribution was that great. And also, I think at the times were not as welcoming for this record as they are now. It's a band that just toured Europe, and I think they have like a couple of 7 inches, an LP. I don't know if they have anything else, but I think that they turned a lot of heads on the European tour.
Cool.
I mean, with good reason, right? It's like this band, Regimen from Colombia.
Oh, okay.
This was, it was released like 5 years ago in a Norwegian label, but it just got.
Yeah, it was Daniel from Oslo. He put it out. Yeah.
But most of his records were kind of hard to get.
It was hard to order records from him. I tried a few times, and then eventually I got the record when they played. He used to sing this band called Negative, and they played in Punta, so that's how I got the record. But it was just very, very tricky ordering anything from him.
So basically, this just got reissued on this label. Again, another, hats off to the label. Discos Enfermos.
Okay, yeah.
He's non-stop releasing stuff, documenting the city, or he leaves Barcelona very well, and also far beyond the city. If you love three bands, Partisans, Lama, and Rip, you like your hard-hitting punk with melody and a lot of aggression, this record is perfect. It's just from the first note to the last note, it's there's no any filler. It's again, perfect punk record from a scene that suddenly in the last few years been getting a lot of attention for a good reason. There's so many bands coming from there that it's overwhelming at times. This is massive recommendation to anyone who likes UK 82, but with a much broader projection. I think songwriting amazing, recording amazing, perfect.
Yeah, I missed that one when it came out.
They were amazing live.
Released now.
It looks so good.
For the tour. Yeah, then hanging out at the cemetery on the back, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, they were really good. They just played Helsinki, I think, a few weeks ago. They played Puntala also last year, which was one of the best shows at the festival. Really, really good energy, really good show. Amazing band, love it. I think it was they just did. I think it was 4-week tour in Europe, and that was, from what I heard, it's the last tour. So I think that's it. Yeah, I hope not, but that's what I heard. So
they have 2 singles too, which I think are really good. But as a piece, this album is jam after jam, no filler.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, what's the business?
And it has a skull.
It's there's certain things you can tell about records. If it's got a skull on the cover, it's pretty good. It's if you buy a bottle of wine and it has a castle on it, it's probably going to be pretty good. If you're buying a punk record and it's got a skull being impaled by 3 medieval swords, you're not right.
Can't go wrong.
Yeah, it can't go wrong. If you got a prog record that's a moldy apple as drawn by,
hey, what, like this one?
No, that's crazy. You put the hand there, Mike.
Yeah.
Or punk record with a skull on it,
fruit skulls. Yeah. Oh, right. That's right. Fruit skulls and castles. The record.
I'm gonna get that. I'm thinking either one of the 2 punk lads.
You'll get it.
Yeah. Probably Kazu. That's Kazu's territory, I feel. So.
Yeah.
Great recommendation. Beautiful.
Hope you dig it.
All right, Ville, what's your Second record.
All right, this one it's from Norway. It's called Torbjørn Kroning and Galskapens Teater, which is basically Norwegian for the Theater of Madness. It's this crazy private press experimental synth record from 1989. And the guy, I was just really obsessed with this record when a friend of mine showed it to me. And you can still pick it up pretty cheap. I think he made like a few hundred copies, but no one cared. So you can still get it on like Discogs pretty cheap, like 30 euros or something. It's an amazing record, like really hypnotic. It's got this good like atmosphere all throughout the record. And I always like the story behind a record like that. This kind of weird guy doing private press things in the late 80s when there's no label who would care about stuff like that. So they just kind of get lost in time. No one remembers, no one cares. And he put out like that record and I think a couple tapes and then passed away at 31 or something. But it's an amazing record. It's on YouTube as well. You can find it. And I think there's probably copies on Discogs right now if you're interested. But it's just, I was just like obsessed with it. I would just listen to it on repeat for a couple weeks when I got it. And it's, I think I was talking to Paco about that private press UK synth record when we were in London. It's kind of the same kind of story that it's not white label. It's got a proper label, but otherwise it's pretty much the same. Kind of a lost record. So
is it song based or is more like a collage, like sound collage and like atmosphere?
It's got like songs, but you know, I think you can call it songs. Yeah, it's not like Tangerine Dream stuff. So
Whoa. Now I'm interested.
No, it's not Tangerine Dream. So.
Oh, it's not Tangerine Dream. Okay.
Yeah. It's more like song based, I think. But
okay.
I don't know what you consider songs. So
well, like more pop, like a pop element, you know, like what we were listening to at home. I think was The Children, that record from Brighton.
Yeah. It's not as pop. It's not as pop as that.
Yeah.
But yeah, an amazing record. Like really, I think the story adds another level to it as well. It's a weird guy in a remote place in the late 80s. I think that's like what kind of makes it more interesting as well.
Was that a bit of an inspiration for Modem at all? That kind of record?
No, I think that's way more weird.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, Modem's like a straight up pop band, basically. So
right. Yeah,
we listen to a lot of weird stuff as well, but it's more like an inspiration for sounds, maybe, or production. Not so much for the songs, I guess. Right. But yeah, it's I don't know if you can. It's got these Norwegian O letters, so the spelling is kind of weird. Torbjørn Kroning, that's it.
Torbjørn Kroning.
Yeah.
Galskapens Teater. Theater of Madness?
Theater of Madness. That's
fucking sick name. I'm in.
Me too.
So
I'm all in.
It's song-based, but it's sort of like
no pop.
No hooks, like just the song is like of time. Is that the idea?
It's they are songs. Like there's a structure. It's not like just a soundscape.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, strange, a very strange record. Interesting.
That's great.
I think I need to write that down.
Paco's interested.
I mean, you saw this.
He's getting it on the list.
Yeah. That was what that noise was we just heard, right? Was it's called purchase.
That was the sound of Paco's AI assistant buying this box.
Right. Okay.
All right. So we just said that any record with a skull on it is good. Mm-hmm. I just noticed my next record has a skull on it, but it also has a goblet of milk on it as well.
Ah. So. Milk is the less reliable indicator.
But it might not be milk. Well, let's see. We'll have a look at the record. But man, this one, like I heard it when it came out, but I couldn't find the record until like a couple of months ago. And I'm interested to see what like Ville think to this because it's a Finnish band I don't know how big this band was or still is. I think they broke up and they changed names, but man, I can't stop playing this record. Like at least like once a day, I got to listen to this. I'm talking about Beastmilk.
Oh yeah, they changed the name.
Beastmilk, Climax. You guys know this record?
Yeah.
No idea.
Oh man. Okay, let's try and like describe this record. It's basically they get called like post-punk, gothic rock, death rock, but it's a big record. You know, like when I hear it, it kind of takes me back to like, we used to go and see reggae gigs as well as punk gigs. But we also like, remember when the pubs in England used to like close at 11 o'clock at night and you had nowhere to go, like in the 80s. So we would like go to like gothic discos and like alternative discos, and you go down there just to drink, right? I mean, we weren't really into like gothic music at that time. And you get, when a certain song would come on, like a real big song, everyone would stand up and kind of dance like a little bit violently to like these like big gothic songs, like I don't know, The Cult, like She Sells Sanctuary, or even like Zodiac Mind Warp. I don't know. When I hear this record, it kind of reminds me of like this, like these big like rock sounding like gothic songs. That's how I hear it. I don't know if that's what they were going for with this record, but maybe they were going for like a more Joy Division thing. But I think it's like way too like stadium. Like you want to like put your lighter in the air and like sing along and stuff. But,
yeah, that's a really good record. It's got like a lot of like pop sensibility to it.
Yeah.
A lot of pop hooks, like really good songwriting as well. And
I mean,
that's the song called "The Wind Blows Through the Skulls," right?
Track 2, it's amazing.
I remember when they started. There was this record store in Helsinki, and they just I found a tape. It was like the first demo tape or whatever they did.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of like this really warped, kind of bent sound to it. So it kind of like fucked up tapes where they recorded it. So it's a bit slowed down and kind of wowing, kind of strange sound. And I think that version of the song is even better than on the record.
Oh, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I think they only made like 50 tapes or something.
Wow.
So yeah, they were amazing. And eventually I think after the first record, they just kind of split up and changed the name. It's called Grave Pleasures now.
Pleasures, right?
Yeah.
They're kind of doing the same thing, but just the songwriting just is not as good as just like every song on this record is just like amazing.
Yeah.
What a great cover, too.
Yeah. Skull, glass of milk.
Glass full of milk.
It's 10 years old.
No.
2013.
2013.
Yeah.
Did it come out on Svart Records originally, Ville, or was it recent?
Yeah, that's the first pressing, yeah.
Okay.
And then I think some US label did the pressing as well later on.
Okay.
Magic Bullet, maybe.
Okay.
But yeah, Svart was the original.
This is like a modern day classic, like in my opinion. It's just like every song could be a hit. Songs, this is like song based, like it's rock to me. Like I know there is elements of like Joy Division in there, but it's way more like anthemic and big record.
Yeah, it's got like really professional production as well. They did it with Kurt from Converge.
That's it,
right?
Yeah.
They went to the US to record it, so it sounds like a big record.
Yeah, it's big.
Yeah,
it's interesting, Mike, that you would associate that with something so evocative and so specific to the UK in a sense. Like pubs still shut at 11 here, and there's lots of places to go later, and almost all of them are playing music.
Right.
And I've been in the early days of visiting this country. We got taken to some of these alternative discos, but instead of cool shit like The Cult, it was like pop punk and emo playing. But every now and again, they would play like just some miscellaneous hardcore song, and everybody just went and killed each other. It's like that has not stopped. What you've described as
all right, that's kind of good to hear.
You've likened that to stuff like The Cult and like huge big goth hits.
It just takes me back. I can even like see the smoke machine and the hair, and I can smell like the patchouli oil in this little black room. You know, it's like it just takes me right back. It just really does have that kind of feel to it.
No, the patchouli smells just in your memory box. Mike's 80s remembrance.
Actually, cooking on this absolute t-shirt.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I could see them like opening for Danzig at like Madison Square Gardens if they were like still a band. You know what I mean? It's that
or maybe Sisters of Mercy.
Yeah,
that's
big.
So they're still active, but under the new name, and they're not doing the sort of.
It's a different lineup. I think they changed most of the lineup. I think just the singer and the bass player are still left, but I think they changed everything.
Same kind of music, but just the songs are just nowhere near as good as Beastmilk's songs.
Yeah, I think it was the guitar player who was kind of the songwriter on that one, and he's not in the band anymore. So I'm not exactly sure what happened. I think like on that record, the vocals and the songwriting is just a perfect match. It's just a really good match.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Luke says that the second Grave Pleasures LP is good as well. There you go.
Yeah. Oh. Actually, the new one, the new Grave Pleasures LP I think is the best one they've done so far after Beastmilk. Yeah. It's got a bit more electronics and I think it's a bit more pop again. So it's catchy.
Nice. Catchy, yeah. Check it out. Beastmilk.
We love pop.
We love pop.
We love pop.
We love pop.
Pop's great.
Songs. We need more songs.
Songs. I agree. I agree totally. Songs.
Oh yeah, big fan of songs.
Yeah.
Don't you think that like all the bands we loved or you loved or anybody loved when you're like having these formative relationships with this music all had these songs, and then at some point the songs sort of got infilled with this static of quote unquote the sound, and the sound
or the aesthetic
never let the songs happen, and it's like all of a sudden kind of songs are coming back, and there are these anthemic moments.
Perfect.
Interesting thing about mentioning Spirito di Lupo and how we're talking about them recreating a sound, but something about that is so essential about that sound leads it to the song, but in many ways the sound becomes the noise and it eliminates the need for the song, and so that's nice to hear.
Yeah, every song is a song on this record. Every song.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna follow up with a record in which every song is not really a song. And it's the inverse of what we're talking about. And it's like I chose this because it has a song on here that I fucking absolutely love. But it's a great record, but the songs are pretty spotty. And that's this Electroshock Asylum LP from Rome in 1980 or something, maybe earlier. Anyway, doesn't matter. Somebody out there can tell us. But
let us know in the comments.
Yeah. Let us know in the comments if you know what year this record came out. It's just a design. To me, this record is a design masterpiece. It's just got this like beautiful sort of like Andy Warhol pop art kind of cover, and it's got this like arch 70s offset printing, cut and paste thing on the back, and it's like total punksploitation in a sense. Like Italy in the 70s and 80s. I mean, these are the masters of style. These are the masters of the image, and not always of the sound. But this song, Pubblici Mores, is just like a fucking screaming hot punk tune. And the rest of this record has some great stuff on here, but it's so spotty. And I kind of love records like this, which revolve around one gimmick, and especially in the punk era. They revolve around one gimmick, and they get their clout from this thing, from this one perfect moment, and then the rest is like, like sharks circling a corpse. It's sort of like it's the inverse. It's a bunch of corpses circling a shark in this sense. Like the great song on this LP is just circling the dead body of like shitty rock and roll tropes and whatever they had to do to get like a record deal, and they do a special regards to David Bowie, Lou Reed, and Iggy Pop on the back. So clearly these people were rock and rollers that just thought like, well, we have to do something to stay relevant, but our heroes are like, we just missed it. And I mean, this is just primo also ran punk, which is its own genre, like unimportant, uninfluential, but they're probably so meaningful to everybody that saw them and was around and who bothered to keep an archive. And I know you have this record, don't you? We've talked about this before.
I just think all that era of Italian punk, like very early punk, like before hardcore was a thing in Italy.
Yeah,
there's an amazing amount of like 7 inches that all look great. and they always have one song, which is like extremely memorable and like extremely good.
Yeah. I mean, everything about this is just so aesthetically pleasing. And they've got songs on here. Like if you picked this up in a secondhand shop, you wouldn't really give it a thought from the cover. But if you looked at the track list, Prisoner of the World, Fever of the Night, Blood Sacrifice, Rock and Roll Love, Electroshock 1. Like what's Electroshock 2 like? Who fucking like, nobody, everybody's like, oh, yeah, Side 2. Yeah, well, have you heard Electroshock 2? But and this is like a very specific phenomenon in punk or in the idea of punk, is these moments of like anybody can do it, and sometimes those anybody's were responsible for like the greatest music that's never been heard, and other times it's just some fucking guy from Rome with their goofy friends being like, well, write a punk song and that'll make us popular for 6 seconds, and then we can do our real love, Blood Sacrifice. Yeah. So yeah, there you go. That's
But you think that's the case?
I don't know. I actually don't know anything about this band. It's hard to find information about who these people were. I'm sure if there's any Italian heads out there, deep kind of aficionados, you probably know what Giorgio Mastrosanti, Marco Bernard, Niccolo Fainello Briglio, Riccardo La Riccia, and Augusto Collaiori are doing now. I mean, maybe they're responsible for the greatest band of all time, or maybe they're shoveling elephant shit at the circus. Like, I mean, this is the nature of music.
Asylum.
Yeah,
Asylum is the name of the band, right? Asylum.
Electroshock. Asylum.
Electroshock.
Electroshock with a K. And
Okay.
Asylum is the name of the LP.
Right.
But, it's an era of music where like punk still was pretty undefined, I think.
Yeah.
And people would put Roxy music, talking. Well, I'm not talking here, that's later. But there was still like a lot of music that people think of as punk, which maybe now we don't think is punk. But maybe those are the other tracks.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, and again, this LP is full of like cool ideas. That one song happens to be the best one, and it's been comped, and it's like, it's cool, and it's representative of that time. I think in European punk, in which everybody who was interested in this self generation or in starting a band and like doing this Trojan horse for their own music via a genre, via a sound, is like making records. And I think it's such a fucking cool part of this moment in time in terms of producing music. And similarly to like Ville, the record you were talking, the late 80s noise record, it's like somebody shoehorns in this like great, wonderful idea. Yeah, it's on this record.
Actually, it's Asylum. No.
I think it's Electroshock.
Let's see what the inner notes of Kill by Dead Italy say.
Okay.
Asylum.
Okay, it's Asylum. I thought it was Electroshock. Okay.
But be careful.
These stupid hippies only produced 2 good tracks. But it's interesting. So, like, this compilation, though, Kill, I know we're shoehorning in a different record, but like, there's so much cool shit on here. Like,
it's amazing.
Uniplux is like the Italian Rush, except they're like basically a street punk band, but they had this like outrageous drumming and like wild guitar tone. And Andrea Mingardi's Super Circus is the definition of punksploitation. He was like a pop star in the 60s and 70s, and he wrote an anti-punk song. And it's just one of the best punk songs of all time. The lyrics to his song, I almost brought this record too. Andrea Mingardi, Super Circus.
But Candegina Gang too.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like the singer was also.
Yeah. Andrea Mingardi, the lyrics are, even the goat sings better than a punk, and below the goat, a punk shits. So, like, so yeah. I mean, Italy's such a challenging place for punk. It's either like total chaos, or this like, the bella figura, right? Like the whole like looking good, feeling good, sneaking one in.
They all look amazing, all the covers.
Uniplux, I wish I owned that record, and if I did, I would have fucking brought it. Yeah.
I have that.
I showed SBI record a few episodes ago. Like
Secret Life, yeah.
SIB.
SIB, yeah. Screaming.
Yeah, on the Kill by Dead too.
Yeah.
A bit reggae.
Yes, that's why I remembered it, because I was like, oh shit, that's had reggae on it.
They probably heard that Calvin Scott song too.
But they have more hardcore songs too.
They were like, this is how can I say, the Wackies. I love it. The DIY drums. For me, it's amazing. I don't know. Anyway,
yeah,
I'm half Italian, so I'm allowed to make fun.
You're not. All right.
Paco's younger brother, so I'm allowed to make fun.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, go on then, Paco.
Okay.
Yes, Paco.
We're gonna. Yeah, let's talk about. Yeah, this record. So I'm gonna show a non-punk record yet again.
All right. Cool.
This record that came out last year.
Oh.
Sonido Tumi. This record is a bootleg of. I mean, how would I put this? For punk people, I would put it maybe as like, if you hear any of the Bloodstains or Killed by Their compilations where they play rare singles of punk of every country or whatever. This is like a compilation of tracks pulled from like 7-inch LPs, even some cassettes, apparently. I don't know that. Of chicha. Chicha is like this type of cumbia made in Peru instead of from Colombia.
All right.
This record is extremely addictive. Like, I think by far is my most played record of the last 12 months. It gets played and danced to weekly in my house. Like, it is insane how much this gets played. To the point that I bought a bunch of copies just to gave away to friends.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I will ask people to try find this record. I think it's online too, and to give a chance to this type of music. I mean, again, in England, it's not a particular type of very popular, but if you like pop music, I think you will love this record.
What's it called? What's the name?
Let's look at it one more time. I'm intrigued.
I don't want for you if you want. Yeah.
What
Also,
band
I
name?
believe there is like a connection with hardcore in this record, but I don't know.
So it's cumbia music, right?
Well, I guess to the untrained eye, you will say cumbia. I believe, and don't quote me on here.
Okay.
Cumbia is more Colombian.
Right.
Chicha is more Peruvian.
Peruvian. Okay.
Making a fool of myself here, but I believe that's the difference. I mean, it has like a lot of influence for like, I guess like Andino music and like obviously Caribbean music, and local Andino, which is from Peru.
We mentioned the Talking Heads, right? I think like David Byrne has this record label. I forget the name of it, but didn't he put out like a compilation of like old Peruvian stuff, which could be like similar to that record?
It's quite possible. I mean, there is a lot of the thing with this style of music. There is a lot of compilations coming out in the last few years. There's labels like Bumpy Soul, which is one of the side labels of Munster Records, which for the last probably close to 15 years now, they've been like churning out like compilation of like Latin music from every country.
Right.
Amongst of them, I believe there is some cumbia records that they did, but I don't know if there's a particularly like Peruvian chicha one. This one is like, it's crazy because there's no credits at all. There's no song titles, nothing. You just listen to the record, and in that sense, there's no pretense.
Right.
I mean, I think even if you go to Discogs, there's a track listing, but there is a number of songs which are unknown for people to figure out. I mean, that definitely have a spark interest on me on buying more singles from over there.
Right.
Which you find most of them quite cheap, but shipping from Peru is quite prohibitive, I think. And definitely, I've been buying more and more like of this type of music because ultimately I find that I buy a lot of I get a lot of like punk music or metal music or experimental music, and which is my main genres of what I buy.
Yeah.
And I listen to them more often than not. They get filed like pretty quickly. This record has been on the deck for an entire year, like non-stop. I mean, my girlfriend plays just as much as I do. Like it is like a soundtrack of the house.
Wow.
Yeah, Rick, I'll get you one today.
I'm glad I came over.
Yeah. It won't be the first time that you live with a record from.
No, it's true. I sometimes I just come by and I'm like, oh wow, I was just in the neighborhood, but anything you're getting rid of?
Yeah. Sonido Tumi. Check it out.
Nice. I've got one more pick later that maybe a little bit adjacent to that. We'll see when I get to it. But nice. All right, Ville, what's your third?
This is actually a record I've been listening to a lot for a long time. But now that he passed away in June, I brought it up again. It's Peter Bressman's Machine Gun.
Oh, yeah. Fuck.
And that's like I know a lot of people know this record. It's like, it's not a rare one, but it's just one of my favorite records of all time. And there was a time when I was just really kind of fed up with punk, and it started sounding kind of boring and not like energetic or powerful. And then I kind of deep dived into like free jazz and like the weird side of it. And that's like one of the most violent sounding records I ever heard. Like the production, it's like a live recording from '68. So you could put on like an '80s noise punk record, and it's nowhere near that. It's just so amazing and so like in your face, raw, and like you can hear like the expression is way different than on electronic instruments. So it's all acoustic instruments. So it's you can hear when someone's blowing the horn like really loud, really pushing it, and like the sound is really good. You can hear what's happening, and it's a record I keep going back to, like kind of regularly actually. But yeah, amazing record. So like a lot of people I talk to about punk, and they keep telling you need to check this hardcore band. It's like really, the sound is really violent and really loud, and I'm just it's probably not going to be as crazy as Machine Gun. Then I just go back to it. Yeah, amazing record, and like I'm really a big fan of Retsman's work. So
it's amazing what you can sometimes the limitations of punk as experimental are quite large, because the directness of punk is like always in opposition to something, and and when you're in opposition to yourself, sometimes like the best you still have to count to 4, right? And like it's not always the same as when you can just really let yourself go. And again, like I think you've said something like really profound, that without the use of electronic instruments or amplified instruments, noise or freeness or volume and manipulation takes on a whole other characteristic. And that is the human element of that. The machine element is that you can amplify something a million times and it starts to feed back, and the human element is real-time distortion of codified sound. And so it's not that you can't do that with electronic instruments, but it's a big difference. And sometimes
like
coming from one person.
Yeah, and when it's like a distorted instrument or an amplifier, it's still like there's a lot of distortion and it's crazy sounding, but it's like more and more compressed when you listen to it. And then when it's an acoustic instrument, it just gets louder and louder. So it sounds totally different. And then I really love the recording as well, because obviously the tape compression kicks in at some point, because like the saxophone or something is super loud, and you can hear it kind of distorting the tape sort of, and that's like the sweet spot. So would be nice to like
Tom Ellis.
Oh really?
Yeah. Over too many Apro Spirits, way too many. We were talking about that record. He just
it's crazy. It's a crazy one. I just always think, like, what did people make of that? Like when it was, even at the show that it was performed at, or when it came out at that time. I mean, people into jazz must have hated it, right? People who were into like regular jazz must have been just like, "What the hell is what the hell is?"
Going on? It's probably kind of the same thing as when people who got into rock and roll heard hardcore punk for the first time.
Yeah,
it's like I can't make any sense of this, or Napalm Death for the first time for anyone, It's like one of those things. Like there's a bunch of records that kind of like these monuments for my musical development, sort of. And one of them was Hear Nothing, See Nothing, Discharge LP. And I had listened to punk rock a lot before that, and then I just picked it up because a friend told me I need to check that. It's a classic record. I was like 11 probably. And then I thought it was so noisy I couldn't make any like it didn't make any sense to me. And then the next one that had the same effect was the first Napalm Death LP. And it was again something more and more powerful. And then after Napalm Death's Scum, I think that record was the next thing. It was like even crazier.
No songs on that one. I like that. No, but it's like when you listen to certain type of music, you have to listen to it like your ear set to expectations. And like for most people who like punk music or pop music or pop rock music, if you play them, if they come to your house and you are playing a free jazz record, the main complaint is like, well, this is like there's no structure here. There's the songs, and this is the exact perfect example of the opposite of pop.
Yeah,
it's like it's all about the vibe, the sound, the physicality of the recording, and don't expect to listen to it with the same ears.
Do you think that it's kind of like representative of a generation gap, maybe in a sense? Because I mean, just touching on what you said about, imagine what people who were into somewhat even more experimental jazz must have thought when they heard that. And maybe that's the thing where they're like, I really don't understand where this is going anymore, because there's no melodic codification, there's no playing outside the changes because there's no changes any longer. Like
everything.
Some of those Sonny Chirac records are so disorienting because it's just like total or Anthony Braxton or like stuff like that it's very like unnerving because you can't situate yourself in it and you have to consider it as quote unquote pure art maybe, and maybe it's not part of the continuum of musicality and it's just about all of a sudden it's about texture on a page or on a surface, and that surface happens to be going in here rather than in here.
Yeah, that's it. But I think there's something really, really like soothing listening to like complete chaos, free from any form. Like I like that a lot.
Now that's something you can fucking put on your business card.
There's go ahead.
Yeah, but like any like super noisy punk stuff or like unintelligible lyrics on like a crazy punk or noise experimental record, it's always like something really, in a weird way, something really comforting and soothing about it. I can't really explain it, but it's I'm really at ease, relaxed when I listen to stuff like that.
I agree.
Like I'm not sure why that is, but it's just the same thing with a lot of like free jazz records and like crazy electronic records.
I was going to mention those. Oops. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I kind of that probably has the same effect on me as a lot of people have when they listen to like Tangerine Dream. It's really it's like a background noise and everything else.
One of the great pleasures. I some years ago when I was still living in Canada. And my wife had some people over and they were just having like a meeting or something. And I really wanted to listen to records, but they were all in the same common area. So I put my headphones on and I listened to the Historismo LP that you put out.
Beautiful.
It is one of the best sounding records of all time. And it sounds like a fucking truck engine stalling. And it's like, but it was really comforting and it was really chill. And they were like, what are you doing over there? And I was like, I'm listening to this band that sings Italian. And like, they're like, really? And I played it for them on headphones and they, obviously they didn't get it, but like, it is quite comforting. You're just this blanket of frequencies and stuff like that sort of like trundles along and calms you down. Same with Hear Nothing, See Nothing, Say Nothing. That was a big record for me too. And I didn't understand it when I first heard it. And then I just one day, it was like being covered in a blanket of guitar. And it was nice. And the repetition and the like, again, to come back to my hypothesis here, like it's the anti-music, that record. There's no progression. It's the same words over and over, out of time, with the same riff and one change. It like they might as well have just been looking at each other going, now, and then they change. And it's like, it's great. It's like the great moment of like zero going away from pop. So it's cool.
I was going to mention those. Oops, we keep talking over. I was going to mention those two like Miles Davis records, like when he came to Osaka in like 1970. Came to Osaka, played these two shows. They recorded it, and the record company in the States like refused to release the recordings because it was like so different from what they were expecting. He did, is it Pangea and Agata? they're pretty like out there records. Like they were not expecting that, and the audience in Osaka was also like not expecting like these 4-hour like funk freak out, like Hendrix guitar like wailing over it, and Miles Davis almost like not touching his trumpet. It's like crazy stuff. All right. Oh, my turn, right?
Yeah.
My turn. All right, let's have a little sip before we go into round 4. Cheers. I'm going to go local again. And punk, hardcore. Japanese hardcore punk.
Yeah.
I got this record like last week, even though I knew this band and I'd seen them live like a whole bunch of times. I'd never owned any of their records, and I found it like used cheap in Disc Union. And I want to talk about it because I think this style of Japanese hardcore might become extinct like in the not too distant future. It's already kind of becoming extinct. There's not too many like young bands playing in this style. I'm talking about like the kind of old school like Lip Cream, Nightmare, what people call Burning Spirits hardcore. It's not, it's like traditional like Japanese hardcore. And there's this band called Masakari. They just got pictures from trees on the cover. It's like real. It's just like this folded piece of paper as the jacket. Oh, the name means battle axe. I think you'll appreciate the name, Masakari or battle axe. It's just one of those bands in a long lineage of bands that are kind of into Lip Cream and Nightmare and play in that certain style. You can probably imagine it, like guys with like floppy mohawks and maybe mustaches, a lot of tie-dye, maybe some bare feet, maybe some violence, maybe some intimidation in the back of the van on tour. It's like, you know what I'm saying, right? I mean, there's like a whole bunch of these bands, like Discreet Records in the 90s were putting out tons of these bands, like I don't know, Heartwork, Raid, Blood Feast. There's hundreds of these kind of bands. And this is like a current band that are still like playing that kind of like Lip Cream influenced Japanese hardcore. Are they the best of it? This might kind of get filed pretty quickly. But I reckon, this style of music is just going to go out of like fashion, or it's going to become extinct at some point, because there's really like no young bands like playing this style.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I think it's like mostly older guys that are playing this kind of music, and the younger guys, the younger people are doing other stuff. I just don't think there's a big...
The internet.
I mean, I could be completely out of the loop, and there might be hundreds of young bands playing this kind of music that I haven't heard of. Luke's watching. Luke, he'll know. He loves this kind of stuff. But
yeah, he'll post a list soon. So.
Yeah. So, I love this kind of music, this style of like Japanese hardcore, very unique to Japan, a little bit of like rock influence, like Lip Cream. Yeah, there we go. There he is. On cue.
Hey, nice.
There you go.
This is in slow motions.
That's it.
No, Izumi's the drummer.
Izumi's a drummer in Masakari?
No,
the bass. Yeah, I was thinking that.
I don't think so.
Come on.
Yeah, the bassist of Masakari.
Oh yeah.
Is now in the slow motions. Yeah. Japanese traditional hardcore. Will it survive? Will it die out? Let's see what happens.
Dying breed. It's a dying breed.
Right? It is right, Paco. There's not many. You haven't really heard many good new young bands playing in this style, right?
But the legacy of those bands is so huge, especially in. It seems like Lip Cream and that era of bands get discovered. I almost brought the Knight Rider single today, but like it would have been a bit textbook, perhaps. Those bands get discovered all the time by younger people, and they get their minds blown, but maybe they don't do anything with it. And maybe in Japan, it's just like an afterthought, in the sense that like it would be insane to imagine, but like in Toronto growing up, there was like this crop of bands in the late 80s that existed, and they were kind of, if you grew up in the 90s, you knew that they existed, but you sort of thought like, big deal. And the Armed and Hammered, Random Killing, Hockey Teeth, like what, these are also like not huge bands in the scheme of things, and they released a lot of great records, but like ultimately they went nowhere. But it's like the difference between Toronto and Japan is that Japan produced bands like Lip Cream and Bastard and Nightmare. And yeah, maybe if you were growing up at a certain time, you're like, fuck those old bands, just like boring, hardcore, crusty bullshit, hippies with no shoes, fuck them. Like, if you guys heard Discharge or whatever. And it would be a shame if that was the way, but I just feel like foreigners anyway discover this stuff like every couple weeks and like have their heads and their faces.
Yeah, I mean, it's just my perception of it. I just, as I live here longer and longer, I kind of see less and less and less and less and less and less of these kind of new bands playing like this style of.
So what's the soup du jour over there at the moment?
I don't know. I mean, I really do not know. I guess crust, yeah, but even like the crust scene in Osaka like isn't like what it used to be. I don't know. I'm not really the person to. I'm not an expert on this, but I just kind of live here. It's like. I know. It's interesting because I looked at the flyer that Foreseen, the Foreseen flyer, and a whole bunch of different bands like on that bill, like Crucial Section, and then Disturbed, they're playing too.
Yeah, you played with them last time in Osaka as well.
Oh yeah,
at Hokage, they were there.
And there's a band called B-Side Approach, who I've never heard, but they're playing too. But it was funny because the bass player of B-Side Approach does backing vocals on this record. So maybe, just maybe, B-Side Approach is a lip cream style hardcore band. Who knows?
This is just an aside, Mike, but did you ever know a band called 903?
They're like from, oh, Jesus.
Speaking of bands that were kind of like lip cream.
Big Mohawks, right?
Yeah. Or Kune or whatever.
Oh, Bound is another one from that area. I'm forgetting what that area is called.
This was I played with 903 at some show in like fuck knows where, like suburb, unremarkable suburb.
Isn't that like Gifu or something like that?
I don't know, but they
Hamamatsu?
Hamamatsu. It was Hamamatsu.
Hamamatsu, there you go.
And it was at this venue downstairs with like a big barricade, but like
I've been there, yeah.
It was a good gig, but they were like that, like lip cream style. And they had mohawks and they were just shirtless before the first song and totally over the top and like doing these kind of moves that previously I'd only ever seen in like VHS of like lip cream playing live or like Dur-Dur or whatever. Like this, like it's like Elvis.
Yeah, swinging the microphone.
Yeah,
that's what we're looking at.
This is good. I hope they keep it up.
I think the last one that I don't follow really, but Nemesis were like the last one that I thought were like spot on.
Yeah,
that's in that style.
Maybe there's more stuff after. Also, that there's that Finnish band that does the same style. Like
Violent Spirit, right?
Yeah, but Billy got me a single when he was here last time. Is that Gaze?
Yeah. Oh yeah, Gaze. And then there was a band called Violent Spirit earlier.
Very like paintballs.
Oh, Violent Spirit was awesome.
Yeah.
That's such a Japanese like name for this kind of music. Violent Spirit.
Yeah,
it just sums it up perfectly.
Yeah, it's got like twin guitar leads and like a bit of heavy metal, touch of heavy metal.
Yeah, gang choruses, got gang vocals. Fists in the air.
Yeah.
But the Gaze 7-inch, that's amazing. It's like crazy music. It's like Paintbox. Yeah. But it's a Finnish band and it's in Finnish as well. It's not in English. So
nice. What's the name of that band?
Gaze.
Oh.
Like Gaze.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did they have a cassette and a single? Do they have anything else?
I think they're doing an LP now, or like a mini LP or something, recording or working on songs. They're all like old friends. So they've been in a bunch of bands before, but this is like the craziest band they had so far, I think, and one of my favorites, I think, as well.
Nice,
really good live. It's got like 5 singers as well. Like everyone's doing backing vocals. It's really good.
It's on my notes, man, to remember things, bro. Come on.
You got to have some notes. Otherwise,
because you guys talk about a lot of things, and I try to have a continuum here. So I can't forget this thing. Although I never forget this thing, to be honest.
Yeah. But the thing with the band Gaze is that usually when you have hardcore or melodic hardcore bands, it's minor chords, so it's kind of like evil or sad melodies. They have major chords, so it's like happy music basically, but it's hardcore. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But no one's doing that in hardcore. It's always kind of darker side of things.
Right.
So that's like happy melodies but it's like super powerful sounding, crazy, good energy, really good hardcore.
Wow,
So, really, really unique sounding band, I think, because it's in Finnish.
Here we go. That language again coming in handy because whatever language you're speaking in kind of colors the music in like a really specific way. And I stand by it. I think that like Finnish is like one of the most hardcore languages of all time, in the sense that it's like
so tough.
It's so tough. Yeah, I mean, with all due respect to the Finnish language speakers in our presence, I'm not trying to like tokenize you or anything, but it's fucking sick as hell.
It is.
All right.
And, should I? Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, I moved you back. Sorry.
That's all right. Decide which one will be next. Okay, we'll go with this. The Breakouts. All We Want to Do. That's a California record. It's their second single from 1980, and this is a band that when I was like discovering early American hardcore, I don't remember where I read about this band, but I just decided that they were the unturned stone that I needed to find to unlock my understanding of American hardcore punk. Like if I could only get these records, then I would really have the key to the kingdom, and I could really write music like this and understand. And in many ways, I'm wrong, and in many ways, I'm right, in the sense that this is one of these bands that kind of just didn't go anywhere, and didn't really make an impact, as far as I know, unless there's some like deep breakouts heads out there. But everything about these records is like an aesthetic perfection, including the first record of theirs that I got was their 12-inch, which was called No More, which is amazing. And it's this like, bizarre like tune. It's the ultimate in-between moment of punk and hardcore. It's melodic, it's wimpy, but it's harder than anything else that was coming out in 1980 in a sense. I mean, other than like the Circle Jerks. Obviously, like you hear stories about the Circle Jerks opening for X and just like physically wiping the floor with everybody in the audience because of how insane the Circle Jerks music sounded in comparison. But this is like that in between space. It's tough. It's up tempo. It's full of riffs and like rock and roll swagger, but it's not rock and roll. It's punk rock. This is like definitively, and also like in a sense of condemnation. This is like punk rock. Like it will never be anything except punk rock, and that's what's so great. And it's 19. This record I thought was 1980. One side says 1978, and the other one says 1980. So they also managed to travel through time on one record, which is a huge feat considering that time travel, was probably nascent in the late 70s and early 80s. And yeah, aesthetically, this record just looks like an 80s, 70s punk kind of American thing. And this in between period is fascinating to me because it's like it's so brilliantly non-committal. You don't have to be brutal and like and demonic and tough, but you don't have to fully pay mind to the rock and roll bullshit or whatever. It's you can do it all. This is like the do it all record. And the two first singles are quite interesting. One is 79, and I'm presumably this one's 1980, unless they went into the future to release one side, right? Like I say. And the one from 79, it's called like All or Nothing or something like that. I forget. It's really more on the surf side of things, and this is like edging on hardcore. And then their 12-inch is like just about early 80s American hardcore in California, but it's clinging to that like melody of like the legacy of the Seeds and other sort of like burnout 60s California stuff, but with the like animosity of the late 70s. And they were probably going to see all the gigs and shit like that. So there you go. The Breakouts, Waiting for a Change, and All We Want to Do on Accelerator Records. Yeah.
It's really interesting, that kind of transitional period in punk between punk rock and hardcore. And this, well, you probably all know Llama, the Finnish band.
Yeah.
And that,
fantastic.
That's kind of like, that's kind of like a great example of that music. It's like they're a punk rock band basically, but they just speed things up a little bit. So it's not hardcore, but it's not normal punk rock.
Right.
And it's one of the best records ever made in this country, I think. It's kind of.
Why do you think they do that?
I'm not sure. There was just an interview of the singer a couple of weeks back because they played a show and first time in 10 years. And I'm not sure if they talked about the music that much, maybe just the image and scene back then. But I think they just wanted to be, I think it's the same that happened to bands like Discharge or Napalm Death or Heresy or something. They just wanted to play faster and more aggressive.
I'm just wondering because they did play with Black Flag here, like, what was it, 81? Or when is the Christmas and...
They did play that one. That was 81, right? Sometime.
81, yeah?
Yeah. One of the few bands who traveled to somewhere else in Finland at the time as well. It's not a lot of those Finnish bands went on tour in the 80s, I think. I think Riista did the US and then kind of started doing the Holy Dolls thing at the same time. And then Bastards did a European tour where apparently one of the band members kind of disappeared and then just went home. And then I think because it would be like an Interrail tour with the rail pass. So and no iPhones or anything, so you can like getting in touch with people was different.
Right.
But yeah.
Lama, those records are fucking perfect. They're amazing.
Yeah.
It's like when people talk about hardcore punk, Lama is like hardcore punk in the sense it's not new wave and it's not metal. It's hardcore punk, and it's full of
hooks.
It's full of hooks. It's like some of the most brilliant songwriting. I mean, I wish I could say the same for the breakouts, but like, let's just talk about
back to the breakouts.
No, not back to the breakouts. Fucking schlubs from the burbs. We're talking real music here, and it's like, that's for me. That's gold dust. That moment because it's not something that can be recreated again.
It was like a really short period of time. It was like 1 year when that happened. It's never happened since. Then it was just hardcore punk and less melodies, I think, and people got in more aggressive stuff. So there's not a lot of those bands in Finland. There was this one band called, I want to say it's called Yleiset Syyt. I'm not sure if it's that one. But it's like a compilation 7-inch that came out in the late 70s, early 80s, maybe 1980. And it's one of those bands. Or it could be on like the Propaganda 7-inch. The first thing they ever did was the Blue Collar 7-inch Propaganda Records. But yeah, it was this band that kind of reminded me of Lama as well. I need to check that. I have the 7-inch somewhere, but maybe not digging it now. It would take too long. Yeah. Cool. I love that kind of stuff. It's also in Canada they had a band called Youth, which is kind of the same thing, I think. Like the energy.
So Youth, they're from where I'm from, and I grew up shopping at the record store where Brian, the singer, he ran the show, and I got a lot of records from him, probably from his collection, and Youth started. They were all around for like the early punk in Toronto. Those guys, and they started. I think like I'm not sure. I might be wrong in saying that their first show was really early anyway, and their first show was with all of the first wave of Toronto punk bands or like the art bands at the time, and it was like this mixing pool of stuff. And Youth probably they probably sounded like the sky opening up in comparison, but they always had that kind of Canadian punk in particular. To me, has this like. I don't know, with some exceptions sort of later on, like Canadian punk is always a bit more melodic and a bit less aggressive than everybody else. And in some ways that can hinder Canadian punk from being upheld with some of the greats because it just lacks that total nihilism and that total like aggression. But because there's this kind of reflexive or melodic interest, it does stand out on its own merit. And those youth records are really like weirdly somber and super fast. They have like Bad Brains drumming, but with like Wipers guitars, not really Wipers guitars, but you know what I mean, like ringing chords and stuff. Major keys. The record, the Canadian records that are most brutal there was a band called Chronic Submission from Toronto that only put out 2 cassettes. And the first cassette like sounds like any first wave US hardcore band, and it's from 1983, and it's fucking crazy. And apparently these guys were like nutcases. And I got to chatting to the drummer Rustin, and we've all heard the stories about Harley Flanagan and how he went to Belfast with the Stimulators and had his head shaved and brought Skinhead to America and became this like fucking maniac. Well, Rustin, the drummer of Chronic Submission, his older brother or his cousin lived in the UK, and he went to some all-day festival in the early 80s. And that's right, the Neos were pretty unhinged.
Yes.
Like, there are exceptions. I'm not saying all Canadian music is like this. But anyway, Rustin went to some festival in the UK, and he saw The Damned and GBH and like Discharge all in the same day. And he said walking into this show was like walking into like the blast radius of a bomb. Like everybody was just like with their shoes 5 feet away from their bodies, like passed out, like on glue, fucked up. And it scared the shit out of him because he was just a little kid. And yeah, he met some punks and they shaved his head and they beat him up and they fucking put a fucking stapled a stamp to his forehead and put him in a mailbox, and he somehow wound up back home. And he starts this band, and they're all like skinheads in the early 80s in Toronto, terrorizing people. And like they had this song called Spitting Out Streetcar Windows, hitting people in the face. What a fucking laugh. Ha ha. And anyway, so that was like this brutal thing. But then the others, and Direct Action was really brutal, and Negative Gain was.
Negative Gain, that's a good band.
Yeah, but the real brutal Canadian band is
United Control.
No, Capitalist Alienation.
Yeah.
Capitalist Alienation is like the most unlistenable, brutal Canadian hardcore record of all time, and that's the exception to the rule. But like, yeah, Youth, absolutely great example. In between, and
yeah, they have the energy and the melody. That's the thing.
Yeah,
they had both things.
Hell yeah! All right, Paco, what you got?
Yes, what you
Okay, yeah, man, it's long, man.
It's long, man.
we were talking earlier about anti-music. It's probably one of my favorite type of sonic material out there. You listening to like Hysterismo full blast with headphones with people having like a normal conversation reminds me of something that is not the record I'm gonna show, but I also gonna show it. This is not the record I'm gonna talk about, but I recommend.
That's Incapacitants, right?
Incapacitants from Japan, yeah.
Osaka.
The first LP. This is perfect music for what you are describing.
Yes, yeah.
However, the one I wanted to show is one of my all-time favorite records, and I love the fact that there is very, very little music on it. I think it is the definition of anti-music, and I do find it. I mean, it doesn't have a connection with punk, obviously, because it's from 1969, but I do find that there is a time continuum in which they operate, and I want to think like bands like Psychosine or Agonia, that type of band. Even though probably I never heard of them, they are on the same tangent. They are like free minds playing absolutely free music / non-music. Now, it's this record by the band Cromagnon.
Love the artwork.
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah.
There you go. Wow.
It's these 3 dudes, although actually it's only 2 of them. One of them wasn't in the band. So Cromagnon, this record came out in 1969 on what most people will call like the premier like free jazz label in the world, on ESP.
ESP, right? Okay.
So basically, the entire record is so ahead of its time, but again, with having very little music, that it is really an anomaly. It is like a very long piece of like bagpipes, black metal labels, people hitting rocks, people chanting, people screaming out their lungs, freedom, freedom, freedom. I mean, repetitive acoustic guitars. And again, it's 0 songs. Yeah, everything is one piece. And the fact like the 2 guys in the band were like, I mean, I don't know this. I wasn't there in 1969, obviously. But they were record producer who had like some minor hits or whatever. And basically they got given carte blanche to go in the studio and make this like piece of music. And if you think like maybe like, well, 8 years later, like Narswood will release the first record exactly the same way. They will go to a studio and like with no instruments, whatever they found, they assemble a piece of music that became the first LP. This is the equivalent. And honestly, it's like so brutally ahead of its time and so unlistenable at times that one can help to wonder what was in the mind of the guy who ran ESP, which obviously he was like no spring chicken. He'd been like doing all the avant-garde jazz, and he has also been doing the fags. Later on, he will release the Charles Manson LP. Look, I mean, he knew what he was dealing with. But among the entire catalog, I think that this record is the craziest one on the entire ESP catalog. And for me, I am obsessed. I am obsessed with it. I've been obsessed with it since like, a friend discovered it to me many years ago. It's reissued. You can like find it easily.
Oh, okay.
You may have seen it with like color cover.
Ah,
right.
Ah.
This is like a Get Back reissue from I don't know which year, but like maybe 15 years ago. There is a current reissue too. I'm not sure I'm not 100% certain of what the title of the record is. Some places it says Orgasm, and in some of the places they have like what I find a much more fitting title. It's Cave Rock.
That's great.
And I think like honestly, everything on that record is kind of like primitive men with no concern for like music, really happy to like push boundaries and say like, let's see how far we can take this joke.
Wow.
And I don't know if it's a joke or not, but for me, the moment on this record, a group of people are screaming off their lungs, "Freedom, freedom, freedom," is up there with like "Bodies" by the Sex Pistols, which is like probably the best songs ever made for me.
Wow, I'm pretty familiar with.
Go and listen to it, and you probably think I'm full of shit, but I adore that record. Masterpiece.
Man, I'm pretty familiar with like ESP back catalog, but that's the new one for me. Never heard of it. Amazing.
I mean, check it out. I think it's definitely on ESP's Bandcamp. You can listen to it first.
Okay.
And have a listen. There's some great quotes on the the descriptions. Are kind to like the Catapilla record.
Right.
Which is when I first make my note about anti-music, because I think there is a continuum between all of those bands.
Right. Cromagnon. Cave Rock.
Orgasm.
Or Orgasm.
Yeah, like the late 60s ESP, the catalog is just, there's a lot of really good stuff there.
Yeah.
And not all of it is like super expensive either, so you can just still pick it up as a reissue or even the originals. Like one of my favorites is the Zetro LP, the first one.
Oh,
that's a good one. That's
record.
Yeah,
and you can still get the 6 pressing for like, I don't know, 20 euros.
Yeah. Have any of you read the book or the ESP book?
No.
Oh god, it's pure gold. I recommend you to like find it, and I think it's called maybe Always in Trouble. Maybe
I've never.
There is a great passage on that book. As a person who runs a record label, I go back to it every time I have problems, and I'm like, this is nothing new. So we all know the facts, right? Pretty big, countercultural band, whatever in the 60s. So there is a passage on the book where when they released the records on ESP, there is a passage on the book where the band fell out with the person who ran the label over the fact that they thought they were making a lot of money and they were not seeing any money. And now they take this as you wish, right? The guy who ran the label, he came out with this crazy story that the CIA were pressing fax record secretly to flog the market and create tension between the band and the label.
That's amazing.
I mean,
that's fucking amazing.
I mean, they were huge. I mean, the facts were like really fucking big. If that story is true, it's one of the best stories in the record industry ever.
Yeah, and even it's still a good story. Like I don't even want to know if it's true, right?
Yeah. I want to believe.
Yeah, I believe it.
If you have a choice to choose between the legend. And the facts go with the legend.
Always.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, Ville, what's your fourth record?
Next one is this is LP by Bruce Hogg called The Electric Lucifer.
Oh, fuck
So
yeah.
Fantastic
really,
record.
yeah, it's like, and the artwork is just it's just amazing. Like you could just buy it just for the artwork.
Oh, wow, nice.
So it's an amazing record by this guy who apparently recorded everything by himself in 1970, and the original is on Columbia Records, so it was like a big label, but kind of a forgotten record as well since then. But it's way ahead of its time. I think it sounds like something the Flaming Lips or bands like that could have picked up later on. And he just there's a lot of synthesizers, and he apparently built a lot of instruments he used as well. And there's like a really early vocoder he built by himself. So it's like an amazing record, catchy record, and there's like this anti-war side to it as well in the lyrics, which is kind of a weird combo, but I like it. So, and it was reissued, I think 5 years ago or something. You can still find it kind of easy, and it's not super expensive, but an amazing record. And it's like, it's got songs, so it's another song record. But yeah, it's got like pop songs, but like super weird production, and it's that's the backstory.
Wow.
That pop songs with super weird production is just like one of the greatest gifts of the 1970s, where
Exactly. That's it. And like
the
early synthesizer stuff. That's tough.
Like the challenge to the institution is like, we'll do it, but we'll do it just a little bit weird.
Yeah.
And it's great because it just pulls apart the fabric of bubblegum and like mainstream music and brings it into this Electric Lucifer sphere. It's super great.
Yeah. It's like the whole theme of the album is kind of like this battle between heaven and hell, I suppose. And then for some reason there's the anti-war side to it. I don't know why, but like it's an amazing record. One of my favorite records of all time.
Wow, and Rachel said so too, man. That's fun. I was gonna as my last pick, I was gonna show that Wizard record.
Oh yeah,
Wizard who did I Wish It Could Be Christmas Every Day. Like their things that it's Wizard Brew. That's an insane record too. I was really surprised. I got it recently. I only knew they're pop hits. It's Roy Wood, right? He was doing some crazy stuff on that record, like psychedelic. He was like taking like 50s rock and roll and making it all like psychedelic. That's a crazy record.
Wizard's amazing, and Roy Wood's also like complete lunatic, obviously. And it, like the visuals with Roy Wood are like part of the huge generation gap break. An old friend has a badge, original Wizard badge, and it just says "I'm busting for a wizard." As well. Yeah. But I mean, and Mustard is Roy Wood too, right? No, that's a Roy Wood record or Wizard record, isn't it? Mustard?
I only knew the hits. I mean, I know most of the bands, like the glam bands. I'd never ever like checked out any Wizard like albums. I only knew the hits, so I was kind of blown away by how
the records are like a real bucket of slop. It's great.
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
It's like the shit that they're throwing off the back of the boat in Jaws. Those are some of the Wizard records. You know what I mean? Gotta be like smoking a cigarette to like deal with the stench.
Yeah, I wish I'd shown that. I had it in the pile, then I changed it for this one. This is my last pick of the day, and it's a new one. It's a new record. It was recorded about 3 years ago. It didn't come out because of Corona, I guess. But well, we've had records from Nigeria on the show. We've had records from Kenya, Ethiopia, Zambia, Ghana. We've talked about records from those countries. Never had a record from Somalia on the show, from Mogadishu. There's this band from Somalia, Mogadishu, that I love all their 80s stuff. I'll show that later. This is their new record. This came out about the Dur-Dur band, or Dur-Dur International. Yep. This is the Berlin session. Just came out recently. I mean, there's a huge backstory to this. On their Bandcamp, you can go in there and read like the whole history of like.
How this one.
Oh, that was the one that I was. There you go. I was going to add on, if you want to go back and check out the 80s stuff, there's this triple LP
That's a record
on Analog Africa, which kind of has all the 80s stuff on it. But anyway, yeah, they kind of, because of the civil war in like Somalia, they all got displaced. They're kind of living in London and Berlin and Stockholm, I think, and they just got back together and went to the studio and recorded this like new record. It's so like, man, I mean, you know, there's like these Western influences, like in funk and disco, and even reggae in there, but it's like so unique because obviously they put all their like the melodies are from like traditional Somalian folk music, but over the top, it's real catchy, danceable, just fantastic record. I guess it's like one original member, I think.
Yeah.
But on this record, because all the others are like, they're all displaced and living in different countries, and the Dur-Dur band.
That's killer.
It's killer. It's real poppy, like disco, and it kind of, this record kind of sounds like it was made in the 80s, like even though it was only made like a couple of years ago. It sounds like the old stuff.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I guess
I love that early, like, not early, I don't know how early, but like 70s African stuff, like the stuff that Analog Africa put out. There's a lot of really amazing records, and I don't think if you can find the original anywhere, or if you can find it, what condition it is. You know? Yeah, there's like, it's rhythmically so different from all the Western music.
Absolutely.
So it's very danceable, but rhythmically totally different than any pop music we listen to here. So,
yeah, it's kind of familiar, but also new at the same time, right? It's,
yeah, exactly. And it's got like catchy melodies and everything, but it still like sounds totally different. I actually had this phase where I wanted to really incorporate that thing into hardcore punk somehow, and kind of selling that idea to my band members was kind of a challenge.
Right?
I'm still trying. Maybe the next Kohti Tuhoa LP will be like that. So we'll see.
Nice, man.
I'm down.
Somalia just came out on Out Here Records. Came out on record label called Out Here Records. Just, I think Paco, especially, you'd love this. Super danceable.
I've seen it around. I haven't picked it up in a chance. Yeah, I've seen it actually.
Yeah. Probably make my best of the year list, I reckon. This record.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Have you ever heard the record Free Youth from Ghana, 1985? It's like most like early rap. It's like super crunchy, compressed drums, like disco, dance, funk. Anyway,
there's a lot of that stuff, like the high life mixed with like, they've been listening to hip hop, but it's like high life mixed with like hip hop, and like they're experimenting with like the digital stuff and all that kind of stuff. Right?
Yeah.
It's a great shop.
Which one?
It's a Yleiset Records in Chatsworth Road.
Maybe, I mean, there's a record shop here who has a lot of that stuff.
Right.
But most of the records, they look like they've been through hell and back. I mean, you find a lot of like African music of all years and styles, but it's very hard to find a record which is like VG. Everything's like it leaves like beats missing. Like some of them look like they've been drenched in petrol.
Yeah, I've got a friend who like lived in Kenya. I've got a friend who lived in Kenya for a number of years, and he gave me some like old like Kenyan 45s. Man, it's just like I've never seen records in such a condition. Yeah. So I don't even want to. I did play them because you got to play them right. But I was like, fuck.
They were in good condition, or like super partied on.
It's not parties, like
just lived.
Yeah.
Lived in. Played.
It's the same when you get records from like Vietnam or like Far Eastern places.
Vietnam one usually,
yeah. It's still like horrible condition, and you can barely listen to it, but it's still interesting. Like, there's just so little stuff coming from, or like there were a bunch of bands and recordings, but they never made it to the Western world, I guess. So they were just there, and then now they're piled up at pawn shops or record shops or whatever, junkyards, I guess.
Yeah,
it's just really hard to find it anywhere. But yeah, luckily there's labels who would dig it up and make it like press it on a proper vinyl so you can listen to it.
Yeah, like you said, Analog Africa is like one of my favorite.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
that was a good story about like this container ship being maybe stolen or shipwrecked in Africa, and they had like a container full of drum machines and synthesizers. So that's why all of those bands have the same sounds. It was like I think it was like Western Africa.
I've got that record. It's called Echo from somewhere.
It's Space Echo probably.
That's it, Space Echo. That's it. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just a good story. Like I don't know if it's true. Probably is, but like all of them ended up with the same stolen synthesizers. So funny how an accident like that can happen, you know?
Yeah.
And like form the whole scene around that stolen container.
Yeah.
Probably some of you guys can fill in the blanks because I'm forgetting the name, but there was a band from the Czech Republic in the 70s. It was these two guys that were smuggling in synthesizers from other parts of the world.
The Plastic People of the Universe. No.
Yeah, I think that's it. And like this defined the sound for 5 years for people in Czech Republic or Czechoslovakia at that time.
I don't know this.
Who were like getting these records or getting these machines and all of a sudden making music. But yeah, there you go. That's fucking cool about a lost container, stolen container.
Yeah, they have the whole story in the liner notes, right, for that space.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
That's
double check that. That's like one of the best compilations they put out, I think.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Really interesting stuff.
Well, speaking of compilations, for my final pick, I've got a bit of a basic choice.
Oh,
but a great song featured on a little compilation called Killed by Death 1.
Okay.
So Johan Kugelberg, cover your eyes and plug your ears, but here's Problem Child by the Slugs, which is just an absolutely normal blast of late 70s punk that has, that doesn't particularly have super long legs, perhaps, but I think this is one of like the greatest punk songs ever. And it's New York City, produced by Rick Rivets, who was in the Corpse Grinders. No, Rick Rivets is who's Rick Rivets? Rick Rivets is like one of those punk guys. Fill in the blanks. Hive Mind. Rick Rivets. What band? Who the fuck was Rick Rivets? I know this, but anyway, this is just great, unadulterated, like rock and roll, punk rock, knuckle dragging, lowbrow, tasteless, pure double cheeseburger, cold beers on the fucking beach music, and this is just so great. And it has this the wonderfully minimal Whiplash Records logo, which features this nice whip. And well, we should all be so lucky to spin this type of stuff to get us through the day.
That's on Killed by Death 1, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have that.
Just looking well, hope so, Mike. The B-side, interestingly enough, couldn't tell you. I haven't listened to it since I got it. It's really great. Sometimes the B-side's better than the A-side. Right?
I'm suspicious of this one.
Of what?
No, it's the title.
What, Problem Child?
No, the B-side.
Oh, yeah, Suspicion.
Hello.
I'm suspicious that this song rocks. Maybe we should, I don't know. Hey, if you're watching this...
After the show, let's have a little disco session.
Yeah, a little disco session. Yeah. But I figured, like, the choice of that record is, like, I don't know. It's also the interwar period musically, right? Where rock and roll is still has its claws in punk. And where punk has its claws in rock and roll, and it's being torn in both directions. And in this case, the solution is just make a really sort of like rough Stooges sounding record, but include bondage imagery and a name of something putrid like a slug. And, that's your ticket to heaven. That's your ticket to ride. Well, maybe not, but who the fuck was Rick Rivets? Somebody
in the comments, let us know. Rick Rivets. Rick Rivets.
It's going to drive me fucking nuts. It's like somebody like quite prominent in the New York scene. I don't know. Help.
We'll find out. Someone will tell us.
Next.
All right. Paco, what's your
Last
last
record.
record?
This is my favorite
yes.
record of the 90s.
I was hoping you were going to play this.
I mean, obviously I like 70s punk. I love 80s punk. But I'm a product of the 90s. I was just, the years when I was, late teens, early 20s. Cress.
Oh.
I believe they're from Wigan, right?
Somewhere up north, yeah.
Yeah. I also believe they were before on this band called Deformed, who has 2 singles.
I think you're correct. Yeah.
So I first got this record in 1997, totally by chance. I remember when I still live in Spain.
Rachel, thank you. I knew it was the New York Post.
All right.
Sorry.
Such a bunch of poses. We don't know that.
I just looked it up, and he was the original. Yeah, that's right.
Thanks, Rachel.
Okay, next. Go on. Back
So-
to Wick.
Back to the
From 1997, I'm
Rachel
living.
Courtney,
I'm
the
living.
legend.
I'm living in my parents' house. Actually, no, I'm living in Granada, and I placed an order with a distribution company from the UK for an active distribution.
active.
For 3, I ordered 3 random records. I can't remember exactly what they were, but one of them was out of stock, and they sent me this one instead.
Instead.
Yeah, it's an alternative without me asking. They were like, "It would be nice." And honestly, it is like one of the best. Like, it's like there's no drums. It's like electronic drums, keyboard, guitar. Now, when you think of crust music, you won't think of that. But this band, the entire record is put together by sound collages, and it sounds like. I mean, these are big words, but if you can think of Hawkwind at their prime, mixed with Doom, that's what you get here.
Really? Wow.
I think it's an incredible record, and I also got so lucky to see them just as I moved to England in what is to this day the coldest night of my life, because I had to sleep on the train station of Bradford on December because I had nowhere to stay. But what I witnessed that night was like an epiphany. It was like you see 4 or 5 guys, extremely tall with dreads,
Dreadlocks, right?
a lot of smoke, playing this synth-driven crash punk, so earnest. It's just man, it stayed with me for the rest of my life. And I mean, when people were like, the 90s, which good records came out in the 90s? I can't think of many.
Yeah.
But this is without a doubt. I keep going back to it constantly. I have 2 copies, one here at the office, one in my house. And I play this record weekly.
I've been here at Paco's office chit-chatting, getting into the
I play these
bevs. And Paco told me this same story, and it was like a fucking kid in the 1950s watching TV for the first time. I was like, "Keep talking," and then he puts it on, and he's got this 1970s Japanese solid state amplifier in here. This thing, I'm pretty sure it knocked the building down 3 blocks away. I was
it sounds amazing, and it's it's put together so minimal. It's such a minimal packaging too. It's like a cheap wraparound, cut and paste collage. You obviously have England's finest there.
There you go.
And
that's actually the Greg's now.
Yeah. GRX, you mean?
Yeah, GRX.
GRX.
Great.
Not far off.
Yeah, I mean the lyrics are great. They're part of that late 90s, mid 90s, late 90s flat Earth scene. Which, I mean, I it's kind of horrible to say, but I obviously moved here to England because I was obsessed with Cress, with anarcho-punk, etc. And I love the British bands. But as I moved here, most of them disappeared.
Yeah.
I didn't really see many of the bands I was listening to. And there was a bit, I mean, the first 5-10 years, there's a big vacuum, but there was not many amazing bands here. I mean, you just went to see them all, but none of them really catch with you. But I did manage to see them once. And I mean, I know they're still playing, but I just don't want to go and see them. Because I have that vivid memory.
Right?
One of the best gigs I ever saw.
At the 1 in 12 club, right?
At the 1 in 12, yeah. With the Scam of Society, maybe Active Minds. I can't remember who else. I have the flyer. I got the cassette tape. I recorded it.
Wow.
Incredible. Yeah. Top band.
You're going to think I'm crazy. I've actually never heard that record.
Man, sorry.
Wasted my life.
It's this is a band that you see in the racks sometimes when I was a kid.
You don't see that often.
But you
I've never seen it in Japan. No.
And I would have dodged this like the
Actually,
because I was just like,
What says that?
What does it say? Aranda 97. That's the date that you saw.
Yeah,
the date?
I used to write the name, the date when I bought records.
28th of July, 1997.
There you go.
There you go. Big
Wow.
Pac.
But I believe this is being reissued right now by the French label.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it came out in a discography double LP on Skull releases like 10 years ago. But now I think it's going to be available again. And I recommend all of you to go and buy this damn record.
I went and got it after that fateful day when Paco played with me at full volume. And I just left with no eyebrows and one tooth. But remarkably, my dreadlocks were in great condition.
Yeah, they still are. They have a split with Doom too, right? Split out.
Yeah, 10-inch.
10-inch.
And it was 7 inch.
The one with the McDonald's cover on it?
Yeah.
The Doom side. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I haven't listened to that in ages.
I like what I like a lot. Right? And I dislike what I dislike a lot too.
Yeah.
That sounds like we're on like a first date or something like weird. Look, I like what I like, babe, and fucking dislike what I dislike. So look, here's what's happening. We're gonna drink some IPAs, get Hawkwind and Cress on. Top. And there's these fucking guys who smack rocks together. They're called Cromagnon. It's going to be the beginning of a beautiful friendship. You know, are you familiar with this record? Some would say it's "quote unquote" like a banshee screaming into the unlistenable abyss.
I'm down.
That's Catapilla, right?
Yeah.
If I had to put a word on it, yes.
All right,
Ville.
take it away. Bring it on home. Last record.
This is the first thing I heard from this band, and since then it's been my favorite record of them. It's No Other Run by the Chronic Generation.
Hey.
And it's I think it might be kind of a hot take for some people, but I think it's a really catchy record, and I picked up the other records later on, but they just never, I don't know, they're good, but this sounds kind of like early Hanoi Rocks or something, so it's totally different. And I'm a big fan of that, so
Me too.
Totally heard it by accident, picked it up, just saw the cover, not knowing what it was, and then it took me a number of years to find out they were actually like a punk band.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's like one of these stories when people hear Discharge for the first time and it's Grave New World, right? But that's like the first record you hear. So to me, with this band, it was kind of one of those things. And it's just like a really, really good rock record. It's not like a punk record, really. I think they were going for more commercial sound and kind of, I don't know, I guess a lot of people hated them for that record as well. But I think it's just a really good rock record. Like if you're into early Hanoi Rocks or like early 80s glam stuff, that's like, you should pick that up.
Yeah.
So it's like really, really catchy vocal harmonies, really good production, I think. And a record I keep going back to for some reason. And I have the other ones, but they're just not getting my time. So
picking up the record first of a classic band is such a touch and such an amazing touch.
Yeah,
because it's like a weird reverse surprise where you're like, actually, this thing is great, and I love it for that reason. And they're like, you should hear their first single, and it's like a completely different band, you know.
Flux of Pink.
The first Black Flag record I heard was In My Head, and I was like,
right,
what the f is this? I was like 15 or something, and then everything was just gravy from there on.
Right.
Yeah, this just like, I don't know why, but it's getting played a lot here, like regularly. I keep going back to it. It's one of those records.
Yeah, it's real listenable. It's real like easy, nice record.
Yeah. And it's like a very easy record compared to the other stuff I had here, like Regimen or something. It's like really catchy, easy pop songs. No, like you can just put it on at any time basically, and it's fine. Like even if it's just playing in the background, it's all right. It's not going to bother you, but it's just something I play a lot. So kind of a weird take for a 5th record, I guess. But
no, it's a good pick. It's a great pick. Yeah.
It was there on top of the pile. So
because you've been playing it, right?
yeah, that's it. Yeah,
It's about.
Yeah, I mean, it's not cave rock, but it's just normal rock.
Cave rock.
Man.
Nice. All right, man. That was a fantastic episode. It's the longest episode we've done so far. Just by a bit, by about 10 minutes. Yes. Success. Yeah, great episode. Great records. Great banter. The banter's great. The banter's the important part, right?
Absolutely.
The conversation. Yeah, having a good time, talking about records in a like non-pretentious, like spin at the pub, right? Talking about
that.
Say no more.
That is the key.
Right.
Cheers.
I was like synchronized watches.
That's going to be the thumbnail, I think.
3 people.
All right, let me just announce next week's show. There's no show next week because I couldn't get anyone because everyone's going to Skullfest in Pittsburgh. So yeah, I couldn't get any guests. I was like, just let's have a week off. I've just done like 2 episodes in a row. Give people a chance to catch up with today and last week, and then we'll be back. We'll be back Friday, August 25th, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Jeff Young of Scarecrow, formerly of Public Acid. Patrick from Destruct. And Scott, my friend Scott Scoots, who did cover art for Government Warning and Toxic Holocaust and a bunch of others. He'll be back on the show. Should be a good show.
I think so.
Yeah, so no show for a week and a half. So go back, check last week's episode, Friday's episode, check this one out, and see you on the 25th, 10 p.m. Eastern.
Listen to the Cromagnon Glam LP.
Yes.
Listen to the Cromagnon Rock Sky LP. Listen to the Hungarian pro-anti-state espionage opera punk record, and listen to Catapilla.
That's it.
That's right. At home.
Yeah.
All right. Until next time, stay healthy and
See you all.
clean.